let us resume where we began. If you remember, before Sukkot, we began a small speech of the Rebbe, that the Rebbe gave, and then we changed, and we learned something else. This is a speech of the Rebbe which he gave in 1963. And the speech of the Rebbe begins by discussing the idea of the unity of the LULOV and etrog. And if you remember, we learned. So here we go. If you remember, we learned in the speech, we changed books what we learned because the speech that we learned begins also with the same topic, that the LULOV and the etrog have and the hadas and the arava, all of those four have elements of unity in them individually. And in addition to that, each one is separate, each one is different, and each one represents a different type of Jew. Remember that? You learned that? Each one is a different type of a Jew. The LULOV represents Jews that the main thing they have in life is learning Torah. And the etrog are Jews that they have both Torah and commandments. And the hadas are Jews that mostly do commandments, action. And arava are none of the above. Why? Because the LULOV, it comes from a date tree, and dates have taste, but they don't have any smell. And taste, the word for taste and the word for understanding are the same in Hebrew. Tam, reason, understanding. Tam means the reason for everything. Tam is the taste. So dates have a taste, but they don't have. That's like the Torah. The Torah is a book of reason, basically. And that is represented by the LULOV, which comes from a date tree. So that represents Jews who the main thing is learning Torah. The hadas, let's look at the four different types. We had the four different types here. Here we go. Hadas. This is English. We had this. Here we go. Here we got LULOV and etrog, right? So we have here. Where is it? Come on. Not having much luck with this today. Here we go. Here we have the LULOV. That's the stick over here. And then we have the etrog, is the fruit. That's the etrog. Here we go. Let's have this one. This one's better. Here. LULOV and etrog. Here's the etrog. Here's the LULOV. Here's the hadas. And there's the arava. The etrog has taste and smell, representing Jews who have taste. Also means understanding, reason, tam. Jews that learn Torah, and smell are the commandments. These commandments reach to the essence of the soul, like smell does. And the commandments. Hadas only has smell, good smell, doesn't have any taste. That's Jews that main thing in their life are the commandments. And the hadas are Jews that don't have either one. You put them all together, you make a blessing. Okay. All right. So that's what we learned before. And let's go to the next page. Okay. Okay. So according to what we said, Al Pi Amavur, according to what we explained just now, what we just explained, that Kumtoisa comes out that the hechsed, the highest of all the four types that we take representing the Jewish people that have both Torah and commandment, is the etrog. The etrog has both taste and smell. because Ered Beided Milos, it has both of the good qualities, taste and smell. Un is Oich Moramas, in this hits at the highest type of Jews, those Jews which have both Torah and the commandments. Now, this doesn't mean that all they have is the Jews that have the Torah means all they do is the Torah and they don't do the commandments. That's a sin according to Judaism, right? You have to do the commandments. Okay, it's possible to fix it up, but nevertheless, before you fix it up, so it's talking about Jews that are okay, but they don't have, their main emphasis in life is not the commandments. That's the LULOV. The main emphasis is learning Torah. And the Hadass represents Jews who their main emphasis is doing the commandments. And Etrog is Jews that have both. That's pretty good. And Arava are Jews that don't have any emphasis. They just do everything like mechanical. They just, how do you say, scrape by in Judaism. Judaism is not important to them. And so that's obviously the least important. So the most ideal Jew is one who puts emphasis on Torah and on the commandments. And the commandments. Lloyd them, so it comes out that should be the one. But when we take lulav and etrog, what do? We make a blessing on the lulav. Al natila lulav. Lloyd them, according to this, is not moving, it's not understood. For vos macht men the bracha, why do we make a blessing when we take lulav and etrog? Al natila lulav. Lulav represents Jews that only learn Torah. But the main emphasis is on Torah, that's very nice. They learn Torah, but it's not as nice as having both. Why do we make a blessing on lulav? It says the reason is as men mach the bracha, we might make the blessing on the lulav because it's higher. It's higher than the other types. As men darf does aber verstand because it's higher. So let's have a picture over here. Let's go back to the sea. The lulav, that's the highest one. See, it sticks up above. And see, we're going to have a picture here. See, here's the lulav, and it goes up high, higher than the others. And here we have the hadassim, and you can't even see the arava. It's in the back. Here, see, here's the arava. It's arava. So, but the lulav is higher. So some people say, well, that's the reason we make the blessing on the lulav, al natila lulav, when we take it lulav. Why? Because it's higher than the others. Higher than the others. Yes. But you have to understand this. This is not so clear. Allah Zach and everything, especially the commandments, they are the way they are spiritually is reflected how they are physically. Valazoy is a zoy and shorish beruchnius. Everything physical as source shows on its source in the spiritual. From from where they are taken. Is Dachdas Gufa, the fact that the lulav is higher physically than the others, shows that spiritually it also must be higher than the others. But that doesn't make any sense. We just finished saying that the lulav only has, it comes from the date, which has only taste. It's lacking smell. It's lacking the emphasis on the commandments. The Chiora voices the Mila. So how can lulav be better than the etrog? The etrog just has both. That's Jews that have both. Vibalta's lulav, because a lulav hatin zich blois tam, it only has taste, and the etrog has taste and smell. In other words, we're not so much talking about the different the different vegetation that we take for the lulav and etrog. We're talking about different types of Jews that they represent. That's the main thing. Why is it here we're saying that the Jews, that their main emphasis is Torah, that's more important than Jews whose emphasis is on both Torah and commandments? Why? How could that be? Vedmenas verstehen, we can understand by understanding the difference between Torah and commandments. Okay, now let's just explain something over here. We're talking this could be understood as we're learning about a religion. We're learning about Jewish religion. Every religion has its laws and its rituals. And this is really talking about the Judaism. That's one way of looking at it. But we have to understand that the commandments are not just Judaism, it's the will of the creator of the whole universe for the whole universe. The only time God spoke, told man what he wants, is when God spoke to the Jews. All the other religions in the world, and there's a lot of them, there's like 8.5 billion people in the world, and they all believe in something or other, even if they only believe in themselves, whatever they, but everybody believes in something. Everyone in the world is presented with a question, why am I here? So, I mean, you have two options. Obviously, you can not ask the question, but it's very rare. A person never in his whole life does he ever question, why he's here. Maybe just puts it aside and says, okay, there's no answers, right? So the only time that this was really explained to mankind exactly why we are here is when God personally revealed himself to the Jewish people at Mount Sinai. And previous to that, he took them all out of Egypt. And they all saw these amazing miracles. And they saw, it says God, they saw God. It says when the sea split, they saw the upper worlds. They saw, what that means is not, I mean, obviously not to be taken at face value, because God is not a person or an angel or something like that. But nevertheless, everyone at Mount Sinai knew that there's a creator of the universe. They knew that they're being created by the creator. They knew that the creator cares about them and about everything he creates. And God gave a law at Mount Sinai. That's when anti-Semitism really went into second gear. In first gear, it was one time of Abraham. I don't know, maybe you can say it went into fourth gear, because Abraham, it began, and then Isaac had increased, and then Jacob had increased even more. And then at Mount Sinai, then it really took off, because the Jews got laws, and it limited all mankind. Right? The 7 Noahide commandments are in the Torah. So the Torah, therefore, is not just a book for the Jews. It's a book that's to the Jews, but it's for the whole world. Right? The Torah is only, the commandments are only for the Jews, yes. But the Torah itself is a message to the whole world that God cares and God creates them. So the Jews being careful in the commandments and learning about the commandments, this has an effect not only on the religious Jews, and not only on all the Jews, and not only, but on all, and not only on humanity, but also on the whole world, all the animals, all the angels, everything. Pretty amazing statement, but the creator of the whole universe, the one that created the angels, created everything, he appeared to the Jews. That's the only time it ever happened. No other religion even claims that it happened. God appeared to all the Jews. Okay. So now let's understand the Torah and the commandments. What are we saying? That the 4 types that we use on this commandment of LULOV and etrog, that represents 4 different types of Jews as to their relationship to Torah and the commandments. Okay, so what is the Torah and what is the commandments? What are we saying the Torah? And we're saying the highest of all of them is the LULOV, because it has mainly the Torah. And the etrog is not so important. Not as it's important, of course, not as important. The highest type of Jew are the ones that they learn the Torah and not so much the commandments. And how can that be? How can they be higher than Jews that do Torah and commandments? So we'll see. What is Torah and what is the commandments? Of mitzvahs, on the commandments, it says, the commandments are the limbs of the king. The limbs of the king. What does it mean? The commandments are God's will, God's inner will. The whole world is God's will, but the inside will of God is the commandments. What are the commandments? The commandments make us move our limbs. The commandments make us move our limb. And even if that limb is your heart, you have to love God, you have to fear God. The commandments make us do. So God, so to speak, doesn't, the limbs of God are the Jews. They're God's people. They're God's representative. They're the sons of God, the Jewish people. So God doesn't have hands or physical hands or legs. And the main thing by God is this physical world. God cares about this physical world, our physical world is very infinitely important to God. That's why he made it. He didn't just make it because he was bored or something. He had a, what was it called, an erector set or something. And he just, Play-Doh, he just made, just was bored. So he made a world, put people in it. The world is very, very, very intended, every detail in it, constantly by God. That's the world. But the commandments are the reason why God created the world. That's the world. The commandments are actions. Only Judaism has commandments. No other religion has commandments. They have rituals, they have the practices, customs, whatever. They don't have ceremonies. They don't have commandments. Commandments are using something in the world to serve God. It says when you use something in the world, you use your body, a Jew, then that becomes an expression of God. The commandments, therefore, are the limbs of God, right? When I want to pick something up, I want to pick up this. Oh, we forgot to give charity. I want to pick up this charity box. I use my hand to do it. I don't use my will. My will expresses itself through my hand. Through my hand. Same the commandments. God's will expresses itself through the Jews doing the commandments. Okay, let's give, by the way, charity. I forgot to give charity. You got to start the day by giving charity. God willing, there will be a class today, and I'll try to make the class in the sukkah. We'll see if we can do that. I have a nice sukkah outside. So the commandments are called the limbs of God. On Torah, it says that the Torah and God are totally one. Torah is called like the mind of God. The limbs of the body are not unified with the person. A person, so to speak, let's change the page. A person can live without a limb. A person can live without a limb, but a person cannot live without a brain. The Torah is the brain of God. The Torah is one with the soul. Intellect. The limbs are not one with the soul. They express the soul. Let's make this bigger. The limbs are true surrendered to the soul. They respond immediately. As soon as it rises up in your soul, you want to do something. If you're a healthy person, especially if you trained yourself, you do it. They can all do what the soul says automatically. Your limbs. You ever see a good piano player, a pianist, right? A concert pianist, their fingers move faster. You could possibly, it's as soon as they rose up in their will, their fingers move automatically. But immediately when the soul wants, that's what the limbs do. That's the commandments of a dach zayin in nefesh. But nevertheless, the limbs, even though they respond immediately, but they are not the soul. When a zoy is oich dem mitzvahs, the same thing is also with the commandments. Vi a zoy is dricht sich oich dem bittel. How is it expressed? The surrender, the harmony of Jews with God, as tut folgt, what he does, and he follows. Is the ratzon, he does what God wants. He becomes a limb of God. That's the commandments. They are limbs of God. You become, so to speak, unified with God. But doch verblieben, the mekayim a mitzvah, the one who does the commandments, is sein eigener Metzius. He remains in his original being, but he just unifies. He clings, sticks himself, so to speak. He glues himself to God by means of doing the commandments, just like the limbs. The limbs are not the essence of the soul, but the limbs, by expressing the essence of the soul, so they become an expression of the soul, but not the essence. Nevertheless, they are separate. When werd nit eins, they're not one with God. When you do the commandments, which is not the case learning Torah. When a Jew learns Torah, so his understanding and his grasping of the ideas was their seichel, which is mind of the Jew, understands, so to speak. He understands, so to speak, the wisdom of God. Now, this doesn't seem very logical, because a person might figure the logic, the mind of God, you have to say these like mystical incantations with which move you to a different world, and you become like in some sort of a trance out of this world, and then you are unified with God. But you learn the Torah. The Torah is just a book. It's just a book in the library, right? You sit in the library and you learn any book in the library except for the Torah, right? It doesn't unify you with the author, right? The author, right? The Charles Dickens had an idea, right? What is it? 100 years ago? When did he write? 100 years ago? 150 years ago? And you read you read what it is, right? Hard Times or something like that. Yeah, these books, you know. So you read. You're not one with him, right? You one maybe with the ideas that he had, but here, yes, but the Torah, though, you have to remember, is a miracle. The Torah was actually written by God. The Torah was not written by Moses. God dictated it through Moses so it could be written. But the Torah is basically like the Ten Commandments, right? That God himself carved it out, the first Ten Commandments. So the Torah is what God is thinking right now. And when you Jew learns the Torah, so it's true that it doesn't all of a sudden change him, and he becomes like the spiritual zombie that is united with the oneness of God and just sort of floats through life, doesn't pay any attention to anybody, right? And these like the floating above all of mankind, doesn't have to wait for traffic lights or anything. He's just floating everywhere. That you might think that's the way the Torah works, but it doesn't work that way, because the point of the Torah is to be in the world. But nevertheless, the Torah, yes, is part of the world, but God, that's a big miracle. The Torah as it is, when you learn the Torah, your mind becomes united with God's mind, even if it's the Talmud. The different arguments in the Talmud, it says these are the words of God. Is verter durach dem, but means of this, you will be unified with the wisdom, the essence of God, which hu v'chachmasu echad. God and his wisdom are one. V'baltas the ma'ila, because this special quality of learning Torah is unity, total unity with God, was ver durach dem, which is accomplished by learning the Torah, is doch far standing. So now it's understood as was mer yid, the more that a Jew devotes himself to learning and understanding the Torah, als mer verter miyuchad, he is more and more unified with God. That's the Torah. So now let's go back to our LULOV and etrog. The LULOV represents Jews who mainly learn the Torah, and etrog are Jews that have both. So here we have, therefore, the LULOV is the Rebbe, therefore, is der was is in ganzen abgegeben, a Jew which totally devotes himself to learning the Torah. LULOV, sheyesh b'hem Torah, Jews that have Torah, and they don't have such an emphasis on good deeds. Here the Rebbe says, Zicher, certainly, as oich mekayim, we're talking about Jews that do the commandments. Because oib nit, if he doesn't do the commandments, as folk der nit, folk doch nit, ois, their learning doesn't do what he's learning about. But you learn the Torah. The one of the reasons for learning the Torah is to tell us what to do. To tell us what to do, right? Like we said, other religions, other groups, everybody has, the library is filled with books. The Torah is just another book. True, it's the wisdom of God. But how does the Torah really express its uniqueness? By means of what it's telling us to do. It's telling us to do the commandments. So if a Jew doesn't do the commandments, he's not doing the Torah. So that what we say, the LULOV represents Jews that all they have is Torah. Doesn't mean that that's all they have. It means that that's their main emphasis. That's what really sticks out by them. Obviously, to do the commandments. If he doesn't do the commandments, it says l'rasha omar alekim, that person becomes a sinner. Nachmer, even more so. If so, we see that the Torah, on the other hand, yes, true that the commandments are special; they're unique by the Jewish people. And when a Jew does the commandments, he is, how do you say, clinging to God. He is unified with God, like a limb is unified with the body, but it's nevertheless is not as unified with a person, like a limb is to a person, as a brain is united with a person. A person's brain has ideas in it, intellect, awareness, consciousness. That's the person himself, so to speak. The same thing, the Torah. The Torah is ideas, awareness, consciousness. The Torah is the intellect of God. That's more unified. So therefore, we can see why you might think that a Jew whose main emphasis in life is learning Torah is important, more important, that's more essential to Judaism than the commandments, because without the Torah, the commandments, there are no commandments. Nochmer, even more. Afilu, even Azayin nitton in is nit beofen the isur al pishulchan aruch, if a person does the minimum of the commandments, nor erhat nitstam maisim tovim, it just does, he doesn't do anything extra, any good deeds, is doch kala omer en li ela Torah, and afilu Torah en lo. It says that you're supposed to have Torah and also doing charity, as made men azoy was is yamakayim, as he does the commandments, erhat maisim tov, he does have good deeds, over blois oiv azoy fil only as much as he needs the minimum. Oiv is mechuyev al pi dinya shulchan aruch und abgegeben ze'er und liegt in Torah. We're talking about a Jew that, okay, when we talk about the etrog, we're talking about a Jew that puts all of his emphasis in both Torah and in the commandments, in both. But when we're talking about the LULOV, we're talking about the highest type of a Jew. Why the highest type of a Jew? Because his main emphasis is on the Torah. He does the commandments, and he even does not just minimum commandments. He does the commandments, and he does them specially, right? How it is, and he gives charity. But his main emphasis is their mer miyuchad, but he's more unified with God. Vider versus sug etrog. The Jew whose main emphasis in life is learning Torah. You see this, for instance, in communities, Jewish communities. The leader of the community is the one who knows the most Torah. The rabbi. Of course, the rabbi does all the commandments. That goes without saying. And he could do all of his commandments in a special way, maybe even more special than others, right? He does the commandments. His etrog is the nicest, tefillin are the best. Everything is, but his main emphasis, what really sticks out by that person, is learning the Torah. Without the Torah, the Jewish people have lost their identity. The commandments become customs, rituals. With the Torah gives us the feeling of the essence of God. One of the reasons why is because there are these arguments in the Torah that you figure, hey, God wouldn't do a thing like that. So if so, it takes you out of your conception of what God is. You think that God must be something that's really spiritual only for, the priests or someone like that. And here you have arguments in the Torah, right? And especially the Talmud. The Talmud is the main thing of the Torah, understanding. And you have arguments in the arguments in the Talmud, how high a sukkah has to be, how low. These great rabbis that had the ability to raise the dead are arguing about, no, 20 amas is okay, but no, it can't be 20 amas. It has to be lower than 20 amas, higher than 20. What do you care? Do the commandment however you want to, the best way. No, you have to do it exactly. So a person learning that, say, what type of a God is this that these are the great holy rabbis. That's what they're arguing about. And they're arguing. This guy doesn't agree with this guy. Come to agreement. What do you have to be arguing all the time for? Right? Says that's because you don't understand what God really is. You don't understand what God really is. God is a constant dynamic process. And this constant dynamic process is not just a constant dynamic process in nature, yin and yang and these things. This is talking about the constant dynamic process in the Talmud. And you don't understand it? That's what God is. You don't understand. Why would God create the whole world? Why would he care about, arguing about how high a sukkah has to be, how big your tefillin are? It says, therefore, when you learn the Torah, you're learning what God wants. So a person that's devoted to that, that's like a rabbi, the leaders, is men miyuchad. Therefore, when you learn Torah, you are more unified with God, and then a person is like an etrog. Why? Because a person who is an etrog, he has Torah and the commandments, but he has Torah and commandments. But a person who is devoted more deeply to the Torah, he is given sight. He is more united. The etrog, he is devoted both to Torah and to the commandments. But Rum Vibald, because there is Iber given, because he is devoted not only to Torah, even when other things, afilu ven di under zach is kium ratzon elyon, even when he's doing the commandments of God, but is er doch zeitweilig, temporarily, while he's devoting himself to the commandments, temporarily at that time, is them in them open from tzavta v'chibur, that he's unifying himself with God like a limb with God, like commandments, unit in them yichud, but he has abandoned temporarily the unity which is by means of the Torah. Now there were Jews that what the Rebbe is talking about is, let's take the ultimate example was a rabbi called Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. He wrote the book the Zohar. He's buried in Meron. Every year there goes about 500,000 people, Jews, go up to his grave and the day that he passed away. So his main thing was learning Torah. He sat and he learned Torah day and night. He did the commandments. Of course he did the commandments. He was a religious Jew. But he was so devoted to the Torah, and so it was with all of the Jews that are mentioned in the Talmud. Their main thing is revealing that unity, that revelation that was on Mount Sinai every single day in every single detail of the world. And that's only through the Torah. That's only through the Torah. And therefore, Rebbe is trying to say that therefore, the mitzvah of LULOV and etrog is telling us a very deep lesson. That it's very important to do the commandments. It's very important to learn the Torah. That's the essence of Judaism. Judaism is Torah and commandments. That's what Judaism is. A Jew is still a Jew, like the Arava. A Jew is a Jew, whether he does the commandments or he doesn't do the commandments, whether he leaves Judaism, it doesn't make any difference. He still is a Jew. He still is a Jew. But a Jew, yes, but Judaism not. Judaism is Torah and commandments. There's only one type of Judaism, Torah and the commandments. And within that, there's a lot of room for self-expression. There's a lot of different customs and different ways and different arguments between these type of religious Jews and these type of religious Jews. But it's just like in the Talmud. The main thing is Torah and commandments. There is no other Judaism, says the Rebbe. And within that, the main thing is the Torah. Because by means of one learning the Torah, it shows a unity with God, which is incomparable. The unity which is accomplished by doing the commandments. Doing the commandments, that's like the unity of a person's limbs with his body. But the Torah, that's like the unity of a person's consciousness with the person, with his soul. When the Rebbe, therefore, is men madgish, we stress in taking the four types, the quality of the LULOV. The Mailav Tachlisa Itachtu, total unity with God, which is Faran, which is by the Jews when they give themselves over totally, at the time when they learn the Torah, totally to the Torah. Well, the Kavanah, because the intention of taking the four types, LULOV, etrog, and Hadas, etc., is the Fareinsikun, to unify the Jews and all of the different types of Jews with one another, which that comes by means of unifying all of the Jews with God. Simple unity, which is accomplished only by learning Torah, as we will continue, God willing, tomorrow. Okay, so now we're going to learn, there's more about the LULOV, that it shakes, that it moves. We'll see. So what did we learn today? We learned today that the LULOV etrog, this commandment of taking the LULOV and etrog, of taking the LULOV and the LULOV, this thing, and the etrog, right, unifies all the four different types of Jews together. Jews that don't have any Torah or commandments, Jews that have both. And the most important Jew, though, is the one who learns the Torah. That's really the basis, the essence of the Jewish people. We'll learn another reason also tomorrow. Because the whole point of Jewish people is to unite the Jews with God, and consequently to unite the whole entire world with the creator of the world, to reveal the creator and the creation. That's the LULOV and etrog, and that makes a person very happy. That makes us happy when we feel the truth, that God is creating us and God loves us. That's the commandment of Sukkot. Now let's do the Yom Yom. 1 second.